All right, guys, welcome back into another PGA DFS video. My name is Eric Paulson. I'm going to begin to the picks here for the Mexico Open. Now, this is going to be a very exciting and interesting week. So I actually really enjoyed these weeks where there's some unknown. Last week was a very similar situation where you just got to kind of prepare for the variance and kind of accept that it's going to be a high variance week and just kind of roll with it and kind of just make your roster construction, make your lineup process with that thought in mind. So just looking at the course real quick, it is a par 71 course. It's a Greg Norman course design, which I bet the PGA Tour loves that. And you probably heard that joke a few times this week already, depending on when you're watching this video. But Greg Norman's getting the spotlight. This is a good month for him with the 30 for 30 stuff, entering into the Open Championship and now having another PGA Tour course. He's running hot right now, but it is going to be Paspalum greens and grass throughout the course. It is a seaside style course, but it is also located on a resort. And then the length is going to be 7,456 yards. So it's going to be played as a little bit of a longer track. So what the expectations are for this course is that it's going to be a little bit easier to hit with the fairways. Thus, the greens are going to be a little bit harder to hit. And I'll get into that a little bit more. But first, I want to get into that recap of last week. So last week was a very, very interesting week. Was able to have a profitable week. And that really just came down to one thing, lineup path. Really crazy streak that we're on. 7 straight weeks of cashing, okay? And that comes down to one thing. Lineup path. And I preach this all the time. It's like good weeks in DFS or betting. It's a long-term thing. And it's really just about making the correct decisions each and every week. And that's eventually going to add up. So about 3 months ago, I had a rough stretch where it seemed like every small thing that could go wrong did. And there's 3 straight weeks where I didn't have, or I didn't cash. And then the last 7 weeks have been, very nice. It's been very nice there. And, some close calls there. Like really the make or break point for this week was Scott Pearson and Sean O'Hare. They bogeyed 17 and then had to make a par putt on 18 to make the cut. It was like a 4-foot par putt and they made the cut. And you hear that, 7 straight weeks, that is my best streak over the last 4 years in cash contests there. You hear that and you would think it's been a really strong 7 weeks, but really the top plays, GPP wise, the top plays have been the letdown. Tommy Fleetwood, Sergio Garcia were the letdown. 63% of the player pool made the cut. That's really not that good. It was pretty much a little bit better than the field. But that's just kind of the nature of the beast with the week like we had. Only 22% of the player pool finished top 5 or better. Okay. And that was Billy Horschel and Sam Burns, who are our 3rd ranked team, and Patrick Cantlay and Xander Schauffele, who are our top-ranked team. Okay, they really carried us that week because Sergio Garcia and Tommy Fleetwood obviously missed the cut, but on the betting card, Patrick Cantlay and Xander Schauffele really carried us. So first round leader, that was really easy to hit. I shouldn't say really easy to hit, but really you could see the trend coming. Like the top teams have been producing in round 1. It seemed kind of fluky that they hadn't won in round 1. And, all the top teams were popping in the first round leader bet page there. And then just outright wise, it just made sense. The last 3 years now, a top 3 team has won. Betting wise. So it's just one of those tournaments where it does seem like it's easier to predict on the top end and then it's just completely random on the bottom. So that's just something that you should pay attention to going forward. But now we're going to be pulling up the comp courses here. So I did find some better comp courses than the ones on the screen here. While I do think the Mayakoba, the Worldwide Technologies Tournament course is going to be the best comp course for us to use. But there were some other ones like for the Zozo Championship, the 9 Bridges course. I thought that was a much better comp course. And then I'm going to butcher this one. It's the TPC Kuala Lumpur from 2019. Those would be the 2 better comp courses, but those are so long ago that there's no point of looking at them as comp courses. And they're really just kind of different events. You're traveling a lot more. Well, probably maybe about the same for some of these players, but just a whole different aspect of those tournaments. So the best ones I could come up with were ones in which are going to play similar in some aspects, but also at the same time, they kind of had the same feel to them. Okay, so we do see the Mayakoba, Puerto Rico Open, the Corrales, and the Bermuda Championship. They all have pretty much the same players in the field consistently. So we typically do not see a player like John Rahm playing in the field. So I do kind of like looking at those events just because certain players just tend to make the cut in those events because they are not as strong of fields. Okay. But the Mea Culpa, let's look at why. So it is going to be kind of pretty much the same style of course. Okay. Same designer, same kind of layout, same greens. The only difference is that the Mea Culpa, the World Light Technologies Championship course, is a shorter track. It's a very short track. And that's the only difference. And that can be a big difference for sure. The Puerto Rico Open, on the other hand, same length, same style, same greens. Pretty similar style play, but it is not a Greg Norman course design. So between these two courses in which we have seen recently, I'd much rather go with those two. Then we got the Corrales and the Bermuda, who, they're not really exactly the same, but they're going to have the same kind of feel to it. So I do want to look at them as well. So the Corrales is going to have the same grass, same length, kind of same amount of bunkers and water hazards as well. The course just doesn't have the same feel to it, doesn't have the same design to it, just a little bit too open, really too much of a seaside aspect of it. And then the Bermuda is pretty much exactly the same thing as the Corrales. But, from there, we can kind of draw what our key stats are going to be for this week. So I pulled into the 9-to-5 course data sheet and I was really dialing it down. So looking at, Greg Norman course designs, what are the top key characteristics on Greg Norman course designs? What key stats are popping up there? Okay. Then I was looking at longer tracks, like what are going to be the key characteristics on longer tracks, seaside courses, pass volume courses, and the key stats that kept popping up the most, one was ball striking. You just saw ball striking pop up the most across the board for those comps that we were looking at. So we're obviously going to want to be looking at that. And then as well, toll driving was kind of popping up there as well. So I'm going to be looking at both of those stats this week. And stroke gain approach, with the bigger fairways, it typically leads to the greens being harder to hit. So we are going to be wanting to look at stroke gain approach as well. And then birdie or better percentage with these resort style courses, and that's really why I think it was popping up there. They tend to just play easier. Okay, so yeah, sure, it might be a little bit longer track, but it should play a little bit easier. They did try to lengthen the course, and they did make it a par 71 as a result. But you're going to need golfers that are scoring. And then another stat that was popping up a decent amount was plus 200, that long iron accuracy. That was another stat that was popping up a decent amount. So that is another stat that is going to be on the back end of the data this week for 9-to-5 key stat wise. And then just pulling that in, let's just wrap this bad boy up. Looking at the players that are going to be the best stat fits in the field, we are looking at Jon Rahm. Obviously, Jon Rahm has been a stud this year. Then Chris Kirk surprisingly popping up there. Gary Woodland, Tony Finau, Aaron Wise, Abraham Ancer, Sebastian Munoz, Charles Howell, Cameron Tringale, and Kevin Na. That kind of makes sense based off of what we just said. And then just kind of going off of that as well, just looking at the players that have the best comp course history. Danny Lee, okay, minimum 2 starts. And this is where comp course history can be very much trap thought. Okay, when we have course history, we always want to use that over comp course history because this is very trap thoughty. This can lead to some poor decision making. I just want to warn you guys about that. So, comp course history, although it's, it is what it is, we have it this week, it can lead to some poor decision making. Okay. And that's just something you should, tend to avoid if you can. It's nice to have, but it should never be like the reason to make a decision. It's just another tidbit of information. So, it's nice to see them popping up, but it's not the end of the world if they're not popping up. Now, if we see them just consistently playing well on these courses, that tells us that they do perform better where they have to travel a decent amount and where the fields are not as good. So wrapping up that thought, we got Alex Smalley, Chad Ramey, Brandon Wu, Justin Lauer, Grayson Stig, Ben Knowles, Jonathan Bird, Chase Heifert, and Patrick Flavin. Now, all those players are golfers that had at least 2 starts here. A lot of the top players in the field just haven't made the starts at these tournaments because, well, they typically just don't have to. That's typically during their off season. Then looking at the recent form, Jon Rahm, Sebastian Munoz, Kevin Na, Chris Kirk, Russell Knox, David Lipsky, Brennan Todd, Patrick Flavin, and Mark Hubbard. I do want to get into one thing real quick. I want to talk about the strategy for this week as well. And I'll be touching on that as the video goes on. So as you guys know, the videos, I like to highlight the top 4 picks in each price point tier. I like to get in the core plays for you. I like to show you guys kind of the lineup process then, and then show you guys the fades. So what I mean by that, and I want to point this out, is that there has been some strange cash, which has made it easier to cash pretty much. There's been some bad chalk lately. And part of that, I think people's lineup process has brought them to going more of a studs and duds focused event or style, which is fine in GPPs, just not in cash. In cash, you want to gear towards the players that are more likely to make the cut most of the time. Now, last week, that was an exception to the rule. I ended up playing a 6K player in cash last week just to get Patrick Cantlay, Billy Horschel into my builds. Okay. So that is kind of going to be the thought process this week. You got to figure out which is going to be your best lineup path to maybe get 5 out of 6 across the cut line, or, maybe even get 4 out of 6 across the cut line, but potentially be able to pay up for Jon Rahm per se. Okay. That is kind of going to be what you're looking for this week. All right. Enough of that. Let's get into the picks for this week. All right, so highlighting the top 4 picks in each price point range. Going to be starting off with the high tier range. The 4 players I like the most are going to be Jon Rahm, Abraham Ancer, Sebastian Munoz, and Aaron Wise. And as you guys can see, they're all ranking out really well in the 9-5 model. We got 4 of the top 6 players in the 9-5 model this week pulled up here for you guys to highlight. Now, obviously, Jon Rahm, the class of the field, highest priced player on the slate. It makes sense. He's checking all the boxes this week. But this is a week in which, kind of like last week, where I think it does make a lot of sense to pay up for a stud like Jon Rahm. Now, he is priced up enough, like 11.3 is a decent amount, but there are some good 7K plays and some good value plays that I'll touch on later on in this video, and you guys will be able to see kind of what I'm thinking there. But we can see, pretty strong across the board in all the key stats that we're looking at. Top, 60 or better in all the key stats that we're looking at. He's the best specialist in the field, best staff in the field, best recent form in the field. Overall ranking out as the best pick in the 9-5 model, obviously. The one thing I want to point out, no comp course history, and that's because, the comp courses that we're looking at, like I mentioned earlier, are events in which Jon Rahm typically wouldn't bother playing in. So, we don't have that comp course history. Oh, well, that's fine. It's Jon Rahm. Not too worried about that. Then looking at someone like Abraham Ancer. So he does have those like Mexico nationality ties, but he's from Texas, born in Texas. So just kind of throwing that out there for you guys that didn't know that. But, really strong across the board when we are looking at like comp course history and stuff. So we can see that, just a stud at those comp courses that, we want to be looking at. So really strong there. Pretty good recent form. Wish it was a little bit better. Sucked at the Valspar, sucked at the Masters. But other than that, was making a bunch of cuts in a row. So that is something that I do like to see from Abraham Ancer. We can see, not as good as we'd want, I guess, for a 10K price point play. But that's kind of the nature of the beast this week. So second best specialist in the field, 7th best staff in the field, 3rd best in course history rank. That's just with that 1-7 start there. If we were to go further back, that would be really strong with that comp course history that we're looking at. But 12th best recent form. And that kind of tells you 2 things. 1, the field is terrible. And 2, Abraham Ancer is still ranking out as a quality play. And then Sebastian Munoz, just nothing more to it than the fact that just been a solid cut maker. 6 straight make cuts in a row. All of them have been around top 30 finishes or better. Overall, just a quality play at 9.8. Yes, that sounds weird to say, but, good play at that price point. Then looking at Aaron Wise, who has been much better as of recent. So we can see he's going to be the 6th best specialist in the field, 6th best staff fit, 8th best in course history rank, and that's only with that 15th place finish at the Worldwide Technologies. And then 30th in recent form rank. So that's not that good, but we can see a little bit better as of recent. So over his last 4 starts, 21st, miscut, 50th, and 17th. So pretty decent from Aaron Wise. Looking at the comp course a little bit deeper there. So we can see 2 missed cuts and, 4 really strong finishes there from him. So that is encouraging to see. I do like that from him, just kind of pulling up the key stats. Yeah, Aaron Wise, just a quality play at 9.5. He is someone that I really don't mind. If you want to bet him outright, you can. I think when I started this video, it was 40 to 1. I could see that changing, but overall right now, decent play at 9.5. You guys can roll with that if you want to. Now we're going to dip into the mid-tier price point plays. So this is a very interesting week, just in the sense that like the mid-tier price point tier is really not that good, especially compared to some of the players that are like right after the 8K price point tier, which you guys will see. And you guys will also see some okay values as well. Like you could make a strong argument for those plays to have been priced up this high as well. And that's kind of the nature of the beast this week with this tournament. Okay, there's a lot of unknowns, and with that you see a lot of strange pricing. Okay, so for like Aaron Rai, I really think he's priced up this high because while he had that 7th place finish last week and had the 15th place finish at the Worldwide Technologies Championship. Okay, earlier this season as well, he did show some good starts, I guess. A 6th place finish at the Farmers, and then he had a decent run of like 3 straight top 20 finishes. That's really the only strong argument I can make for him being priced at this price point here, but still, he's a top 20 play in the 95 mile, which once again tells you all you need to know about this field. One play that I do really like is going to be Charles Howell. He does kind of seem, I don't want to say like a cash play, but he does seem like a solid shoulder shrug play at his price point. Like if you're closing out your builds and let's say you have, I don't know, 8.800 left on your DraftKings builds, and you're kind of looking through it, you're like, I just want someone that's a quality play that should make the cut more times than not. Like if we're going to play this tournament 100 times, Charles Howell probably would make it like 73% of the time. Oh, shoot. That's his make cut percent. Oh, man. I wonder if that was a subconscious thing, because I just made that number up off the top of my head. I wonder if I saw that before. That's kind of funny there. But a 33rd place finish there at the Worldwide Technologies Championship. One of the comp courses that we're looking at, obviously. And, he had been in some pretty good recent form. Only a few miscuts mixed in there here and there. But, I guess that'd be the worry with him. But other than that, has been pretty solid this whole season. So that is something that I do like to see. We probably are going to get a made cut out of him. Let's see some of the other finishes at these comp courses. So we can see, a couple of strong finishes, 2 miscuts. Overall, decent enough stuff there from Charles Howell to like him as a pick. Pretty strong stat fit this week as well. A guy that shouldn't shoot himself out of the tournament this week. And then Lanto Griffin, once again, kind of ugly that he's popping. So top 12 specialist rating, 14th best stat fit, 15th best in recent form, overall 7th best pick in the 95 mile, which is very ugly that he's really popping. And that, once again, tells you all you need to know about this week, okay? So this is kind of why I just want to stay out of this price point here, because I don't love these plays. Like, sure, they're popping up, and more likely than not, they're going to play well, and that's why they're popping up, but it does worry you, okay? And then looking at Mark Hubbard. Mark Hubbard is super interesting because these comp courses that we're pulling in here, he should have played better at. And I remember, I think it was the Corrales where he missed the cut. He mentioned that, some interview, he mentioned that, I really like playing in these events. I just don't play well in them pretty much. He's like, that's something I need to start playing better at. And that is super interesting to me. And it's just one of those things where he just hasn't played it that well. And I don't know if it's like the travel that gets to him, maybe uses it more as a vacation. I don't really know. It's just strange to me that has been the case there with Mark Hubbard. Decent play. Like, I expect him to make the cut. If it wasn't for that, like, worrisome comp course history, I would like him much better as a play because he's been very solid across the board this season. Just wish he was better on those comp courses. And that's where it can be a little trap thoughty as well, because, all in all, like, he should play well this week. So I'm not too worried about it. Now we're going to dip down into the low tier price point plays. All right, so now dipping down to that low tier price point tier, here are 4 of the plays that I like in this price point range. And guys, this range is loaded, but obviously for content purposes and making the video not too long, these are the top 4 plays. Now, Chad Ramey is a play that I really do like. He is someone that has been catching my eye really this whole season. I'm kind of mad I didn't have him a few weeks ago where he won at one of the comp courses, the Corrales Championship, but, played really well at the comp courses as well. And I think that is the key takeaway, is that he's had a 5th at the Puerto Rico Open, 1st at the Corrales, and a 17th at the Bermuda Championship. To me, this is kind of just a standout price point. Now, sure, been a little bit inconsistent this year, just been very inconsistent, if you will, but given the fact that he's played well at those comp courses, I'm kind of willing to overlook it, especially at this price point. To me, he has just as much upside as some of those mid-tier price point plays. And, maybe the downside's a little bit too much for cash purposes, but still just a quality play at that price point. And then Brandon Wu casually popping up as well. So comp course history-wise, this season, 3rd, 28th, and 34th. I absolutely love that. Sure, terrible stat fit, not the best specialist, not the best recent form. But if we were to just look over his last 4 starts, 4 made cuts, and a top 3 finish. So that is pretty good there from Brandon Wu. That is something obviously we'll take. And then if we want to look at the comp courses a little bit further, we can see a 7th and a 3rd in there. Love that. And then prior to this kind of good stretch where obviously the Zurich Classic. Now, I mean, we shouldn't really take too much into that. The Corrales, an event like this week, the Valspar, good stuff there. And the Puerto Rico, yes, those are events where you probably are not shocked he made the cut, but at the same sense, that is the event that we have this week. Then a guy that I really just like pretty much a lot this season is going to be Tyler Duncan, especially in events like this. In events like this, really the one thing I kind of will use in 50-50 decision makers is, has that golfer been playing good golf? And really in a field like this, you can determine a good golf by has this golfer been shooting under par in his miscuts? Really is kind of what I look for. And Tyler Duncan really has been doing that. Okay, strong finish last week, 27th. I like that. 12th the week before that, miscut, and then a 28th place finish. But I really like the comp course history, 45th, 35th, 28th, really strong stuff there. And looking across the board, top 35 or better in all the key metrics that we're looking at. So overall top 15 play in the 9 to 5 mile, he's going to have a strong likelihood to make the cut. And I really think he's going to be a strong play. And he's someone that you'll probably hear a little bit later on in this video. And then looking at Chase Seifert as well, kind of the same reasons I like Tyler Duncan, I like Chase Seifert. So 22nd, 41st, miscut, 18th, 41st, 15th, and then a bunch of like decent made cuts. So one miscut for the comp courses that we're looking at. So I like that. That tells us that he can go ahead and play well in tournaments like this. And also just pretty good recent form. 4 straight made cuts in a row. If we were to include the Zero Classic, that'd be much more. So good stuff there from Chase Seifert. He's pretty much exactly the same play as Tyler Duncan, just not as good of a stat fit, but slightly better, I guess, specialist rating, slightly better course history rank as well. So overall, Chase Seifert is also going to be a really quality play for you. Now dipping down into those value tier plays for you. Let's go. So I really don't mind the value tier this week. Some good enough plays where obviously you're just hoping for a made cut in this value tier, and I think some of these plays are going to give us that chance. So Adam Schenk, I really don't mind. He is someone that I played a bunch in these comp courses. Okay, now he did miss a cut at the World Biotechnologies Championship. That was kind of random, but besides that, he bounced back, had a 7th at the Corrales, 26th at the Bermuda, made cut at the Corrales, 27th at the Puerto Rico Open, and maybe it's just the World Biotechnologies Championship, not a good course for him. That's where his missed cuts are coming from there. So maybe that's just what it is. Don't play him at that tournament, play him in all the other comp courses. But I guess that does worry me a little bit that the one tournament in which we see as like the best comp course to use, he has missed a cut 3 straight times there. I guess that'd be the worry. But overall, just been finding ways to make the cut, and that's something I do value there from Adam Schenk. So an okay play there, like not ranking out well in the model at all. So that is a worry to me. That typically really hurts players' chances to make the cut if they're under like 65. So right at that threshold is Justin Lauer. Justin Lauer, looking at the comp courses once again, 35th, 15th, and 17th. That is something I really do like. Terrible in ball striking. So over the last 10 weeks, out of like the top 1,000 players in the world, that's what I'm basing this off of. He ranks 330th out of those players. So out of all the players on that list, over their last 10 starts, that's terrible. That is really terrible. Then just looking across the board, none of these stats are really good there from Lauer. Okay, so not going to be a good stat fit. The only thing we're banking on is that comp course history there from him. Okay, that's all we're banking on. But someone like Patrick Flavin, it's a little bit iffy as well. Okay, because his like recent form data that we're pulling in is going to be from those comp courses, a 22nd and a 17th place finish. But we got that 54th place finish mixed in there as well. Not that much data off of him because all of his starts have been on those comp courses in which we do not have strokes gained data for. So like the total driving is really the only stat that we're pulling in there. So decent play across the board, I guess, based off of the data that we do have. But that is something I'm willing to take the risk with because, top 36 there just based off of that small sample size that we have from Patrick Flavin. I just think he's a decent play, and we just don't have enough data for him to be even pulling in here. But 6.5, I think that's a good enough price point to risk it in some builds. And then looking at Bryson Niebuhr, he is someone that I've kind of been looking at a little bit when it comes to these comp course events. 11th place finish, that was pretty good. 69th, okay, but once again, not enough starts to be pulling in there. And then a 35th place finish. So, okay for the recent form, decent play at 6.3. You could do much worse, I think, than like these value plays. Like they all make some logical sense there. Obviously, don't go crazy with any of those value plays, but they're all good enough. Going to begin to the core plays now for you guys, and then going to be showing you guys the lineup path for this week. And then we're going to be getting out of here. Well, we'll touch on some fades, and then we'll be getting out of here for you. All right, so touch on the core plays. Obviously, John Rahm is going to be a core play this week. I kind of echoed why it's easy to fit him into our builds this week, and I think it just is. So the worry would be, I guess, maybe it's just overlooking this event, just playing in it for fun. I just don't see that happening. I think he is going to have a strong chance to the top 10 and obviously go out and win. So, it does make a lot of sense for me to pay out for him this week. Just best play across the board this week. Just looking back on it historically, this is one of the better plays in general for a tournament. So, John Rahm, obviously the class of the field. I don't really have to touch on that one too much. Now, these next few plays, I'm going to have to. So, we're going to get into it. Grayson Sig is actually a pretty strong play this week. Ranking out really well in the 95 mile. That worries me a little bit. Top 10. But my model really goes and gears towards made cuts. So, he's made 20 starts on the year and made 16 cuts. If we were not to count the Zurich Classic, he would have made 7 out of his last 8 cuts on the PGA Tour, which is obviously really good. Finished 33rd at the Makoba or at the Worldwide Technologies Championship, which we like to see. So, really strong in that sense. Top 10 specialists in the field. Kind of checking all the boxes this week. Top 10 play in the 95 mile. I do like him, and you could easily parlay him with Tyler Duncan as well. We already mentioned that I'd kind of be using again later on in the video. I just think he's a strong play. His missed cuts haven't been bad, and his made cuts have been good enough. When he makes the cut, it's pretty much a top 30 finish. So he's made 25 starts over the past year, missed a cut in 10 of those, which is, kind of worrisome, but his missed cuts have not been that bad. And he has been able to find ways to make the cuts at these events. As we can see, 0 missed cuts in these comp courses. So I do like that there from Tyler Duncan. And then looking at a similar play right in his price point range is going to be Chase Seifert. We already saw that he ranked out a little bit worse than Tyler Duncan did, but really what we're trying to do is we're trying to get 2 made cuts out of the players in this price point tier. From Chase Seifert, I do think we're going to get that 4 straight made cuts in a row. Hasn't been playing poorly this season as a whole. Top 25 pick in the 95 mile at 7.1. You can easily fit him into your builds, and I'll show you guys kind of how to go about doing that by fitting those 4 players into a build with John Rahm. I think that's going to be pretty easy for you to do. So here we go. We're going to click on John Rahm, and now we're going to scroll all the way down. All right, so Tyler Duncan, Chase Seifert there. Grayson Sig. So we got a decent amount of salary left over. We should be able to fit in like another decent play and then kind of go from there. So I do think someone like Charles Howell will probably make the cut. And I wish I could have more confidence in Mark Hubbard. So we still have a decent amount of salary left over. I do really like Sebastian Munoz. I do think he's going to make the cut. And I'd much rather play Sebastian Munoz than Charles Howell, I think. It really just depends on the roster construction that you choose to go with this week. So for me, I kind of do just want to avoid that price point range, kind of lock in 2 made cuts on the top end and kind of hope to get lucky on the bottom end. Maybe someone like Nick Taylor, who's also a play that I really don't mind, you could usually fit into your build. And I'm pretty okay with this. It's ugly, but it's decent at the same time. So course history, average rank, obviously that's comp course history, 30th, top 26 stat rank play on average. Recent form rank is pretty good out of this group, so I'll take that. Average mile rank at 12th. Obviously, we got some players carrying that, but 6 players selected. Pretty decent build here. Like this should have a pretty good chance to make the cut. And obviously, as the week goes on, we'll gear this up or fine tune this a little bit more so that we can give ourselves the most optimal chance to make it 8 straight weeks in cashing. We'll see. That'd be pretty fun. Be an all-time new record there. That'd be fun. But yeah, gonna be getting to the fades real quick, and then we'll be getting out of here. So the fades are kind of easier for me this week, I think personally. So just gonna be looking it over. So the players that I want to fade are players once again that I think are going to be popular and a little bit too risky. So one of those players, actually, we'll do both of them: Cameron Tringale and Cameron Champ. Now they're both okay plays. Like Cameron Tringale, top 23 pick in the 95 mile, and then Cameron Champ, 38th pick in the 95 mile. I think people are going to default to this course having wide open fairways, and thus thinking that's going to mean that driving distance is going to matter a little bit more. Typically speaking, it's just more of a, with wider fairways, that typically means that there's tighter greens, so strokes gained approach is going to be more key. Now, sure, that could mean that Cameron Champ does, have a good week, played well at the Masters, and I do think I want him to start playing better, but just at this price point, I don't think that's going to be worth the risk. Last time, though, he was at a price point like this where, it wasn't worth the risk. He actually ended up winning the 3M Open, and he was kind of a terrible play that week. He's a little bit better of a play this week, but, for me at that price point, just a little bit too risky. And then Cameron Tringale, I just think he's going to be chalky. I do. We'll have to wait and see on that. That'd be someone where if he's not chalky, don't even worry about it, but I think he's just going to be too chalky. And then same thing for kind of the next 2 plays as well. So I'm just going to type them in. We got Matt Jones and then Sahith. So like both of these plays I actually don't mind. Matt Jones is going to be priced up a little bit too much this week for me to be on him. And just hope that he doesn't do well. Saeed, he is someone where if he isn't too chalky, and I would say probably too chalky would be anything over 15%. If he isn't, I do like him a lot as a play. But I do think, everyone had a lot of fun with him at the Waste Management Phoenix Open, and he's just kind of been someone that's been getting a lot of TV time since. So I do think he's going to be someone that's going to be a little bit too high on, and he's just kind of fun to cheer for, at least right now. So I do think he could be someone that potentially gets talked up a little bit too much. If he doesn't, though, decent play at his price point as well. But he is kind of just in that 8K price point range where, to me, it's just a little bit too risky of a price point range this week. So there's no reason to go out of your way to play someone in that price point tier. But that is all I had for you guys this week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please give me a like and subscribe. If you guys want to join 9 to 5 Nation, the best value in PGA DFS, $10 a month. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. And as always, let's keep cashing.